All right, sounds good, everyone. Well, first off, thank you so much for everyone that's been in person or online for taking time out of your Friday to come to UW's Advanced Students Day. So it's a really great opportunity just to connect with the program, alumni like ourselves, and just the whole community. So really appreciate that. First and foremost, my name is Tony Toe. I'll be the moderator for today's session. I'm currently a program manager for strategy and growth for Atlas Healthcare Partners. It's a outpatient surgery center development and consulting firm. And I'm from the class of 2022. And so with that being said, I'll introduce all of the panelists who introduce themselves. If you do a quick little name, pronouns, grad year, what's your current position, organization, and then a little fun fact about yourself. And I'll have Sam start us off.
Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me okay? Perfect. My name's Sam Rosu, she, her pronouns. I'm class of 2020. I currently serve as Director of Technology Operations for Indigo Urgent Care, which is about 50 urgent care clinic across Washington for those that aren't local. I also non-official or also on the side, I'm closely involved with our MHA Alumni Board. So just another capacity you get to stay connected with the program. Fun fact, I am related by marriage to Al Capone. I don't know if that's fun or not, but it's a weird one.
Hello, everyone. So glad to be here today. My name is Tasia Jones, and I am a Performance Excellence Program Manager at Overlake Hospital in Bellevue. It's pretty much just our organization's brand of continuous process improvement. A fun fact about me is I wanted to keep it not work related, but I think this one's kind of interesting is that I'm a department of one at my organization, so it's just me right now.
Hey everyone, Rohan Bhatt, class of 2020, he, him. Let's see, product manager on the technology advisory services team at Multicare, mostly on IT and kind of innovation projects there. My fun fact is I live down the street from Sam, so we're neighbors now.
That explains why you came together. Hi, everyone. I'm Roxy, graduating year 2023. Feels like yesterday. I am currently a senior business analyst at Providence Health System, soon to be product manager. And I work in data interoperability. So essentially like the data exchange between payers and providers in mostly value-based systems, but also commercial payer contracts. Oh, sorry, fun fact. I have a giant Shih Tzu and he's 20 pounds, and it's not because I overfeed him, it's because he's a mix with poodle.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for the introductions. I forgot my fun fact. I don't know how to swim, so don't put me in open water. So there's that. Well, with that being said, today we're going to explore why our panelists chose UW and an MHA, what the experience was like, and then how that translates into real leadership positions. And so we're going to start with why UW and why an MHA. So for all the panelists here, can you briefly walk through your background prior to the UW MHA program? What were you doing and what prompted you to pursue grad school? And then we can start from the other side with Roxy.
So prior to my MHA, really back, I started as a CNA because my path was originally going to be for nursing school. That was my goal. That was what I wanted to do since I was 16. I was like, let's get it going. So did that for a little bit, worked through COVID. And I think that really kind of turned me off to that whole clinical aspect of things. And I wanted to be involved in healthcare, but I wasn't quite sure what that would look like for me. So I took about a year, I think, off, worked as a CNA, did some exploration. I knew I wanted to be in healthcare. I just didn't really understand what part of it I could contribute to. So I did some talking to leaders at Virginia Mason, where I worked at the time. And I met this leader, her name's Kateri Chapman, and she changed my perspective on everything. She talked about her day-to-day. She talked about her priorities, her goals in life, and how she also was aiming for a clinical path, but ended up doing an MHA and how it completely changed her life. And I very much align with that, the purpose, the mission, and also just the day-to-day. And so what other better place to do it than my backyard here at UW? I was a bachelor's student here as well. I ended up completing my bachelor's degree in, I believe, health sciences. And yeah, then I just applied, got in and started my master's right away and then jumped right into my new job. So that's me.
Well, similar background for me as well. I was a bio major here at UW, was pre-med, got about halfway through my med school apps and it was a long conversation internally, but realized I was more interested in the systems and kind of processes of healthcare rather than patient interaction and more clinical work. At the time, I was volunteering at Kaiser and shadowing some of their surgeons and got to talking to them about administrative and business processes. That was of interest to me. And then I also had a friend who was 3 or 4 years older than me from undergrad who was doing her MHA at Columbia, and she was a really good mentor and resource for me. And so that kind of got me thinking more about, okay, after undergrad, what could I do? What kind of other degrees besides medical, dental, or a clinical background I could go into? Took a year off to work at a tech startup and became really interested in innovation and using technology to kind of invigorate new industries or like older industries that maybe haven't incorporated tech just yet. And that kind of married with my interest in healthcare. So went back for my MHA, did that, and have been working kind of on the tech side of healthcare since.
For me, it's a very common trend. I was also on a preclinical background path at UW. I wanted to study pre-dental, but my major that I chose was public health within the School of Public Health at UW. And when I started, getting some experience with the clinical aspect, the administration side was really pulling me. But also just being in the School of School of Public Health at UW, I enjoyed it so much. So I started looking up, different paths that the School of Public Health offered post-grad, and I discovered the healthcare administration program. So I didn't really know too much about what healthcare administration was, but I knew I liked administration and I loved the School of Public Health. So definitely it was kind of UW School of Public Health that the healthcare administration program is under that really pulled me to this program, and definitely was a great, great decision.
I'm originally from Wisconsin, and moved out to Seattle in 2015 after undergrad. I was working for Neighbor Care Health System, which is a local FQHC, as a medical scribe, and then ended up transitioning into process improvement. Actually worked for the administrative fellow at the time at Neighbor Care, and was just fresh out of her MHA program, so it was really great to kind of hear about her experience and kind of helped think of in terms of what I want to do next. I really liked process improvement and kind of that quick problem solving aspect of healthcare, so ended up here.
No, thank you for the insights. It seems like there's been a lot of variability, but also similar experiences when it comes to, why the UW MHA program, what you were doing, and what prompted you to pursue grad school. And so this next question is for Rohan and Roxy. Can you dive a little deeper in terms of why you chose an MHA specifically over some other degrees, such as like an MPH, an MBA, or a clinical pathway? And we can start with Rohan.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, as I mentioned earlier, being pre-med, I kind of made the decision right around graduating undergrad where I didn't want to go clinical. So was looking at MBA, MPH, and MHA at the time. Knowing that I wanted to go more on the business and innovation side of healthcare, and MHA or an MBA made more sense to me. But then also looking at MBA programs, they typically require, 3, 4 years minimum of working experience, especially for the top programs like UW. And so that made my decision a little easier, knowing I wanted to go to grad school pretty quickly after undergrad. But then I also had a pretty strong passion for healthcare. So I knew between the two, an MHA would definitely give me more specific experience and industry relevant teachings rather than an MBA with a healthcare focus. So made my decision pretty easy to go for an MHA after that.
Similar, I would say. I was very much between an MBA and an MHA, but my love of healthcare really steered me towards an MHA. But I would say the MHA was really helpful in the fact that you get such a well-rounded experience. You're not only talking about business, but you're also talking about healthcare. And now my current role, I would say I could use an MBA, an HIHIM degree, and an engineering degree as well, and combining all of those. But the program definitely gave me the foundation to work really well in my job. Like now I'm learning how to code SQL for, value-based care measures that I know some history about coding thanks to this program. And then my business writing is better than my bosses who went to Wharton for his MBA. So I think that's kind of a flex a little bit too. But yeah, so for me too, it was a little bit like I knew I wanted to be in healthcare, but I think it just opens up your opportunity to all things within healthcare, especially technology. And as we kind of bloom into the next few years and, AI gets like taking over everything, it's good to have some foundational knowledge about a little bit of everything if you're passionate about healthcare, especially.
No, thank you for sharing your insights, Rohan and Roxy. With that being said, the next question is really around why UW specifically. Obviously, Seattle is one of the best cities on the West Coast, and so just want to drop that there. But really, this is for Tasia and Sam. What differentiates this program from other programs as you were applying for grad school specifically?
This was for me, I was in Seattle, I was at UW. I kind of mentioned I loved already. I fell in love with the program. So I kind of had some experience with UW's School of Public Health. So that was why I chose it. But I think after going through the program, I just think the UW MHA program's history and connection with the community has been so invaluable. It's just opened really a lot of doors to what opportunities that you want to explore, if you want to, make connections and kind of learn about, what other people are doing, have informational sessions. I think just, being able to speak to being a student at UW really gives you that opportunity to explore and grow and have access to a lot of opportunities from being here. So I just think the community connection has been a really great asset.
Yeah, I think I'd similarly echo what Tasha says. I was in Seattle at the time as well, and did briefly look at other cities as well, potentially moving back to Midwest, but really love it here. Just beautiful, beautiful summers, not too horrible winters. So I was pretty set on staying Pacific Northwest, and as I looked more into Washington, it's just such a great school. I really appreciated how the program was, I think as Tasia said, like embedded with a lot of the health systems in the community. It was exciting to see how many alumni were still in that area or elsewhere too. If to keep that option flexible and just, UWMC is right there. So can quickly go and learn and, talk with people who are doing the work you all want to do. So I think that was just really critical to me and definitely found that experience here.
No, absolutely. No, that's great insights there. And a quick plug that Sam and I are part of the UW MHA Alumni Association. And really, when they both mention community, that's a really crucial aspect that really ties everything back together because the students are supported by a lot of different layers of support, but that support is primarily driven by alumni that wants to give back. And so just wanted to emphasize that as well. Transitioning over to our next section around your experiences at UW. And so for all the panelists here, what part of the UW MHA program experience was most essential or valuable to you? And then we can start with Sam.
Hard to pick. And I'm sure we'd all pick something different, but maybe the one I think that lasted for me was, I think as I was kind of talking about before, just the connections with alumni. It definitely, the program is great and identified and making connections, but it's still up to you to go and reach out. And so I think it kind of teaches you about networking and all those awkward things we hate in terms of approaching someone in a room, but it's so critical. I wouldn't have had an internship without networking, to be honest, and I probably wouldn't be where I'm at without some of the people I met during the program. So I think just taking advantage, all alumni are so willing to help and kind of take the time to learn about you if you're willing to reach out and make that effort. So I think for me, just the alumni connection during and after the program was critical.
For me, I would have to say participating in the case competitions, just having access to be able to do that from the program. I didn't ever plan to do it. I don't even think I knew it was something that I had access to, but deciding to do it was definitely something that changed my experience in the program. It's something that you always have access to. So if you don't take the first case competition, you have many more opportunities to participate in one. But it really helps you grow. It's really applicable to kind of what it looks like working on projects within your jobs post grad or your internships. You know, are asked to dive into a business plan that maybe you know absolutely nothing about, working on a team with people you've never worked before. But I was during COVID, so we were remote, so we didn't get to travel, but also today you would also be able to travel and meet, you know, so many other MHA students across the world. So it's just an amazing opportunity, and I would definitely recommend to take advantage of those.
I think similar to Sam, I would say connections as well. The alumni network is how I ended up in my current role, and it's really a valuable resource. But additionally, I would also say the skills taught in the classroom, coming as a bio major, coming into the program as a bio major, financial statements, business cases, strategy cases were all new to me. And those are all pretty essential to my current role. So learning how to build a pro forma, learning how to build, you know, a reasonable and thoughtful strategy for a new program was a new skill that was, you know, incredibly valuable in my current role.
Yeah, I concur with all of them. I actually did get to go in person to the case competition, so I can speak to that a little bit. And it's really cool to get that opportunity to connect with people from other programs. It also kind of showed me how much our community within the UW MHA program, like those, at least I feel in my cohort and in most cohorts, how much they care about the program and the people around them as well. You can see the difference a little bit between other programs and their kind of mental approach towards them. But I was, I left being very glad that I came to the UW MHA, I'll say that. And similarly to everybody else here too, like just the connections that I made. And I mean, I wouldn't have my current role if it weren't for one of my professors. Like period, I would not have that role or this role. And in addition to that, just the friends you make, honestly, I am still very close friends with all of my like cohort mates. I mean, even Tony, who wasn't my cohort mate, but he was my mentor in the program. And we went to, where did we go? Joshua Tree, like a few months ago with like a bunch of other people from also the MHA. And it's nice in a couple of ways because you make those personal connections. But I also want to emphasize the fact that we're all in different parts of healthcare. Like Tony and I have close friends like Tasia who work more in operations, and one of our friend Ahmad also works in operations in California. So really getting that perspective from everybody else and what they're doing. Like one of my best friends works at Children's right now as a program manager. So it gives you that perspective of your community and you get to really see, like, you don't have to, it's a Yelp review. It's an honest Yelp review of the different parts of the industry. And it's just also nice to have people to commiserate and complain about healthcare with, because some of your friends might not actually care about healthcare. So I think that's really valuable as well.
No, thank you for sharing your insights. I think the kids are using Belly now as an app rather than Yelp. But with that being said, on to the next question is really around what was the most challenging part of the program and how did you overcome it? And this is for Tasia and Rohan.
I'll start for this one. I think the most challenging part was for me was I was entering in the program straight from undergrad. So a lot of my classmates had some experience in healthcare, and they kind of had a better idea than I did of exactly kind of what area they wanted to pursue. And so I felt some pressure to kind of have to have an answer about, you know, what part of healthcare administration, this really broad, you know, uh, degree, like what I wanted to do with it. And so I struggled with that for a while. I try to have an answer. I think I said I want to manage a clinic someday. But I think balancing being okay with just not knowing the answer, because even those that thought they knew the exact path that they were going to go on, maybe ended up in something completely different and are thriving in that. And I think even just like knowing that if you're going to do a fellowship or, you know, go the job route and apply for jobs after graduation, I think the sky's the limit. You don't know what's going to happen. There's so many opportunities. And so I don't think you have to know. And even if you do know, be open to kind of pivoting and exploring other opportunities, especially post-grad when it's time to apply for jobs. You can gain a lot of experience, even if it's not exactly what you thought you were going to do. So I would say that was really challenging for me, but it worked out in the end.
I think for me, the biggest challenge was coming from a very individual study-based program and doing all of my homework projects and tests by myself to the MHA program. In my class, we had groups of 6 for all of our work. And I think getting into that group environment was initially a challenge. My team had some conflicts, and first quarter was a bit of a learning curve for all of us. Luckily, the program really helped out. We spent a lot of time with Kurt and some of our other professors to kind of fine tune our team dynamics and understand like why were we not working well. And I think that experience was really valuable long term because I very rarely work on anything independently at work. Oftentimes it's with a large project team. And I, do a lot of project management. So being able to have experiences in kind of tough situations I can draw on has been helpful. And then I think that it's just going to go forward. Right now I don't manage anybody independently, but hopefully in the future we'll have direct reports and things like that. And I think those skills that we learned from working in a team here in the program, was a challenge at a time, but now is certainly an asset.
No, for sure. And I want to echo a little bit and double down that sometimes you go into this any program and it's okay not to know where you want to be at in like 2 to 3 to 5 years. I think all of us, when we came into the program, had different aspirations and goals, but ultimately they may have shifted, but that's totally fine because when you look at your career development, it's not going to be a straight linear line. It's going to be a zigzag to where you want to be. And as cliche as it sounds, sometimes it's not about the destination, but about the journey. So. Just want to call that out. But on to our next question around just any additional opportunities that you may have pursued during your time at the MHA program, whether that's with internships, fellowships, MASA, assistantships, and how did those shape your trajectory? And this question's for Roxy and Sam. So I have Roxy go first.
So I did pursue an internship, as I think most, if not all people in my cohort and probably your guys' cohorts did as well. That was great. I learned so much. I was in Swedish in their outpatient field. That's what I did. My boss from then is still a really, really good friend of mine now. We're actually getting together again next week. And having made that connection, I was able to kind of wiggle my way into a role working for the CFO as a process improvement specialist during my second year post internship. And that was incredibly valuable as well. I got to learn a lot more of realistic application of finances and what that looks like in an ambulatory care setting. And then while I was doing that, I decided, which is the fellowship process is very interesting because there are people like Tony who knew they wanted to do a fellowship from the year prior and really went after it, applied to many. And then there was me who kind of was like, well, I think I'd like to do a fellowship, but if I would like to do it, I would like it for it to be here. And so I applied to the one and I was lucky enough to get it. So I started working as a fellow following my process improvement role. So about a week after my graduation from the MHA program. And I will say that is a paid role for a year. You're just a paid student essentially for a year. And I worked under the chief executive for the North Division. So that covers Puget Sound and Alaska. Providence does have entities across 7 states. So from that fellowship, I was able to gain a lot of experience, especially strategically, operationally, financially, in understanding how decisions are made at a very high level, especially during really turbulent times in the economy and in healthcare. And I also kind of learned, it kind of humanized everybody for me a little bit too as well. And I think that's been really important, just remembering, we all have relatively the same amount of time on earth here, and executives sometimes make mistakes that, we might not think they do if we don't get that up close visual of that. So following kind of my fellowship, I did a lot of networking in it and I stayed in touch with a lot of professors, and that's how I kind of pivoted into my current role. But without having, those steps in that fellowship behind me, technically my role required, I think about 6 years of experience within healthcare informatics that I didn't necessarily have. And it was very clear that I didn't have that. I was very honest. And it was one of my professors that helped me get the role, and just a little bit of research, came into it very honestly and openly, and kind of how I learned in my fellowship, and was able to land this role that kind of hit me by surprise with how much I loved it. But I think the fellowship really shapes you in ways that you don't even realize. but it's like those experiences are invaluable. And I'm a very big proponent of either way. Everyone will get to the same place at some point. So you don't need to do a fellowship, but I will say they're great and they're exciting.
I think during the program, I tried to take advantage of as much as I could. It's only 2 short years, and there's a lot of learning in the classroom, and there's a lot of learning outside the classroom. So I was involved with student organizations, did case competitions, had a part-time job through the Washington State Hospital Association that ended up extending into part of my summer internship. Which was a really good learning experience to kind of see maybe less a direct healthcare delivery, but kind of more from a state policy level. And then the other half of my summer, I ended up getting a virtual health internship through alumni connection at Multicare. So that was a really good introduction to more the direct care delivery side of things. And also my first kind of more technology based. And I was a virtual health intern during March 2020, which was pretty eye-opening and a really quick, fast learning experience. I think similar to Roxy, I actually came into the program pretty like, nope, not going to do a fellowship, not interested. Thankfully, there's smarter people than me. And so I at least kind of thought, why not? I'll apply, figure it out, to actually talk to some people. I similarly also really liked the organization was at Multicare, which offered a fellowship. I was like, why not? I'll try it. If I get it, great. If not, I'll figure something else out. Really fortunate it did happen and kind of quickly converted after going through the fellowship. I think it was a really phenomenal experience, gave me access to leadership I probably wouldn't have had in an entry-level job. And I think kind of gave me more of a year to figure out what do I actually want to do? What am I actually interested in? And also just really strengthen and build a lot of the knowledge I learned in the program. So was able to stay on after my fellowship and really enjoyed it.
No, thank you for sharing. And I think just to summarize, there's so many different opportunities you can engage in. And I think a lot of times how much effort you put into it is how much you get out of it. And I believe all of us here have really put in the kind of equity and just opportunities and leveraging us as students at that time to kind of be able to enhance our learning. So great insights there. Our next question is really just around how did mentorship, faculty support, even relocation to Seattle impact your overall experience? And this question is for Tasia and Sam. So I have Tasia go first.
Thank you, Tony. So yeah, I think that the program heavily emphasizes mentorship. Every single student is connected with a mentor who recently or graduated in the program, is working in the MHA healthcare field. And so I think that was amazing. I wasn't always the best at keeping my connection, so I think it's more of like something I would recommend to take advantage of is not only your alumni mentors, but also your faculty members. They are really there to support you, but I feel like you do have to be good about reaching out and keeping those connections because I think there's so many examples that we talked about today. They can really support you in this field that you don't know a lot about. And there's so many, different experiences that you might have opportunities. So I think the program does an amazing job of giving you access to those and, connecting you with two different types of mentors that you can make connections with.
Yeah, I think there's so many different layers of mentorship. So the first day even before you start the program, you get a mentor in the class above you, which I think is really helpful for those questions you don't know who you can ask. Like simply like, where do I get lunch on campus? To like, hey, what is this class about? A faculty mentor, which the stage mentioned really important. And I think kind of was able to help over time, especially for those that aren't sure where they want to be in 5 years, kind of guide you down that path. And also so many of the faculty was open to, dropping conversations, even if they weren't your assigned mentor. So I really appreciate that too, that they make a lot of time for students. And then there's professional mentors as well, which I think are critical and sometimes scary, but I think really helpful. I still remember so much from my professional mentor and what he taught me, everything from learning more about his job to doing practice interviews with him. I still remember one point where we were doing a practice interview and I was like, oh, that's a good question. Like that was kind of my filler thing. And his response to me was like, Sam, I know that's a good question. That's why I asked it. And kind of like that critique, like, don't use that as a filler. And but like we had established such a trusting relationship, he was able to kind of give me that open, honest feedback. And that, yeah, there's different professional mentors I had that have become friends over time and see them for birthdays, happy hours, things like that. And um, I think you learn really quickly. It's a really small industry, even though it feels enormous. So it's just, yeah, I think putting the time in as a student and playing the student card really makes a difference.
Thank you for sharing those insights. And I think it's beautiful that you mentioned the different layers of support for a mentorship, whether that's students in your cohort or even faculty, alumni. But I think all in all, it encompasses community, and especially for those that are relocating to Seattle for this program, I think there's a lot of different layers of support that is kind of validated by just the community structure that's emphasized within the UW MHA program. So wanted to call that out. But essentially, we're going down to our next section before Q&A, and it's really just translating the MHA experience to a career. And so this is for all the panelists. Our first question, how did the MHA program prepare you for your current position? And we can start with Roxy.
Oh, I think I kind of said it in my opener a little bit. It really laid foundation for me in a lot of ways, in a lot of areas. I never went into any part of my internship, fellowship, or current role, which has been the most, I would say, far away from an MHA proper operations job. I've never felt completely caught by surprise by anything. Sure, there's like learning curves that you have to do to master a skill, but I've never felt fully caught off guard. I think that's really important. And as I'm going a little bit rogue here, but as I'm listening to everybody, I want to be clear that we've all done a lot of work. Like you put the equity in, you get it, but it's also been a lot of fun. Like I think we can all say we all had a lot of fun in this program. And you almost, I mean, you have people, it's, I had more fun in my master's than my bachelor's degree. And I think that like translating that attitude as well, it like into your career and, you know, into your interviews and going through the trenches with people, you know, your fellow classmates on those things. Those are, I mean, that's invaluable to have people going through the same things that you are in the same industry, you know, interviewing sometimes even for the same positions. And just, you know, really recognizing that your biggest competition will be yourself. It's not your friend. So having those kinds of experiences and just like being able to have foundational knowledge, I think has been super invaluable. And I was walking to this building and I was just smiling. I was like, I feel like I'm all over again in my master's program. And it was just so much fun. And to hear how much actual stuff we accomplished, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool because we also had a lot of fun doing it. So
Tony, remind me what the question was.
No worries. How did the MHA program prepare you for your current position?
Yeah.
This is a safe space, so.
Okay. No, I mean, I think I mentioned it earlier as well, just skills wise, classes taught me a lot about the things that I'm using right now, finance, project management, informatics, you know, things like that. But I think I would echo what Roxy said about the connections, you know, just in my class alone, I think we have 3 alumni working at Multicare. I've had other friends or classmates be vendor partners in my role. Just in the year above and below me, there's also another couple people at Multicare. So I think having those connections and as Sam said, or I think it was Sam, like healthcare is a small industry. So having that time in a classroom or, you know, student association events like really allowed me to develop those relationships prior to just being coworkers. So now when I am on large projects at work with some of our operational friends, we have an existing relationship, and I think that goes a long way. I think just also what we mentioned, like I got in my role through alumni, and I would have never had that opportunity if I wasn't at UW to meet those alumni members and kind of have a relationship with them. So I think that was super helpful for me.
I think the program did an amazing job balancing the technical skills introduction for healthcare administration with the interpersonal skills within your education. I didn't know how that would translate into my career, but I can say now that mostly every single one of the concepts that we've learned in course in the program has come up in my career. So I would definitely pay attention to everything that you learn. It's high level, so you might not think you're going to get deep into finance or population health or analytics, and it's going to come up at some point. And so I think it's really good to engage in that. But the heavy focus also on interpersonal skills was amazing. It actually helped me get my internship, which I'm still at my same organization that I got my internship from. I remember he's a CEO now at a COO at Overlake, but he kind of, when I was doing my internship, he's like, we're not too worried about, your resume, the things that you've done, because a lot of you guys are very similar. You guys have a lot of similar backgrounds, but we're really interested in, how do you show up? How are you going to fit into our community at this organization? And so it was really just a conversation. I got to be myself. And I think just the interpersonal skills that we learn, and then being able to understand how to work with people, how to work with groups. I love that the program emphasizes that as just as important as all of the technical skills. So I think just being a well-rounded leader, the program really helps with that.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would maybe add is just, how to be a professional. Honestly, I had 4 years working experience before I did the program. And even still, there's a lot I didn't know in terms of like, how do I communicate a really complex thing I've been working on for 6 weeks in a single page or 30 seconds, and having someone buy in and be like, yep, thumbs up, we're going to give you money to go do that. Harder skills than it seems. And I think, through not only classwork, but case competitions or other opportunities within the program, you just learn how to be a more effective communicator and more effective professional. And, if you hope to continue growing your career, it's kind of some of those essential skills you need to be able to grow, as kind of Tasia was saying, as a well-rounded leader.
No, that's amazing insights. I'm like mentally taking notes right now. But with that being said, for our next question, if you could call out any specific courses, tools, or even leadership lessons that you still use today in your current position. And this is for all the panelists, and I'll have Sam kick us off.
So many, and maybe thankful not all my professors are here because I don't want to feel like I'm picking favorites or anything like that. Project management, definitely. I swear, not just because Ed walked in. But I would say maybe the two I didn't expect to use as much as I did is a lot of our finance, especially how to create a pro forma. Shockingly, people get really impressed by that. And it's really hard to learn at first, but you're like, oh, it's just, two things and it's great. And a lot of Excel stuff. AI is definitely making it easier these days. But just being able to kind of quickly do an analysis on things, even if it's not your forte, goes a long way.
Yeah, I think I kind of covered this in my last answer, but I think all of them come up. Again, just like Sam said, project management comes up a lot. So I loved getting an introduction to those tools and seeing how they can be applied to the projects that I'm managing. What I did in the case competition, I probably didn't expect would be so common in my role, but just, kind of high level understanding how an entire process is currently working versus how do you recommend it to improve with an entire business case has been something that's really common in my role. So case competition, what I learned there too is really applicable.
I think I've talked enough about classes that I found helpful, but a lesson that the program taught, I can't remember who it was, Sam, but one of our professors made us a magnet that said, don't believe everything you think, and it's still on my fridge. And I think that's been super helpful, just going into a role where I work with a lot of different teams and a lot of different people. It helps you just kind of remember to not use your priors as much as you think. Assume positive intent was always something that Kurt was telling us as well. Working with operational staff and being IT, there's always a lot of friction, and just knowing that people are at their core just generally trying to get what's best for the patient done. I think it has been helpful, but there's just a lot of lessons from, I think it was seminar and the kind of interpersonal and team communications classes that were super helpful in my role.
Yeah, I think this is now my third time mentioning this, but I think with classes, they really do like across the board really help with your foundational knowledge. I would say something that I haven't mentioned, but that a couple people have on the panel, personally, is I think working in teams in a professional setting, that was something I was new to because I was working with teams in either a bachelor's setting, which is completely different than a professional degree, or clinically, which is completely different than a professional setting, yet again. And so learning how to operate through, tense times, challenges, how to really like meet people where they're at in a lot of ways and gain that empathy. That was really huge for me as well. And aside from the course content, that was, I mean, again, all very foundational to kind of my entire healthcare journey so far. I would say that that was extremely important. Like, there's no team that doesn't go without some level of conflict at some point in the full 2 years that you're here. So learning how to navigate that is almost invaluable. It's very real time. It's not hypothetical. So.
No, thank you for sharing those insights. I just want to double down in terms of the group dynamics. Kurt, who is a professor here, just left, but he teaches group dynamics and a lot of just interpersonal relationship building. And it's so crucial to be able to have kind of the skill sets and the theoreticals to help kind of go into conversations that are like high risk in terms of an emotional standpoint and be able to come up with kind of different approaches to it. And so I would say with this program specifically around the group dynamics, it really helps build your interpersonal relationship building. And some may say that healthcare is a relationship business. And so I just want to at least call that out. But on to the last question before we move on to Q&A. What's one piece of advice you would give to a prospective first year student or a first year student? And I'll have Roxy start us off.
I think I said it before a little bit. Well, I alluded to it. I would say go into it with an open mind, go into it with an open heart a little bit. I know it sounds cheesy, but the more you can absorb from your environment here, the better you are off. And it opens the door to so many like long-term life relationships, not just professionally, but personally. And I think that's been just incredibly invaluable and just have fun with it. Like, you can be committed and be driven and also have fun with things. And I think that's so important. I think my cohort sometimes may have, and the professors can confirm or deny, we had a little bit too much fun sometimes, but at the end of the day, we were very dedicated to what we were doing. And there's a lot of laughs and there's a lot of good times. And I think like having that, mindset that at the end of the day, we're all here to learn. We're all here to make the, again, world a better place, which is a little cheesy. You can't really go wrong. If you're struggling, reach out for help. But I think your mindset is just stay open. Best thing you can do.
I think adding on that, I would say really make an effort to be friends with your classmates outside of the classroom. We had before school started, we had a kind of meetup at a brewery in Ballard, and I think that really set the tone for our class. 36 of us, we all got along really well. I think I've been to 4 weddings now of classmates, traveled, and you've done all sorts of fun stuff post-graduation. But most importantly, you're all on that kind of journey together. So it's really good to have those connections. I mean, it's been 6 years since I finished the program, but I still feel like I can reach out to at least half of that 36 if I have a question, if I'm interviewing at their company or interested in what they're doing. I think those connections have been, they're valuable and they're going to be lifelong connections. And it's all because we made an effort to be more than classmates and, really be friends by the end of our 2 years here.
I would say just step out of your comfort zone. I think example is, you're going to probably get really comfortable with your group that you're assigned to work with. You'll work with different groups across the 2 years, but, getting outside of that group and making connections, making friends. And then like with your roles in your group, don't just work on things that you're comfortable with doing. Step outside your comfort zone because, like Roxy said, when you're even in a high level leadership position, you still make mistakes. So I think it's really your opportunity to grow and do something that you don't know how to do. And just always be curious, ask questions. I think that helps you with your connections with your mentors and your classmates, just learning about what they do. I think asking a lot of questions, how do you do this? Why do we do this? I think it's just your chance to grow. So I think those are 2 ways that help you.
I A lot of really good advice. I think maybe how I would frame it or how it's framed to me by a mentor is say yes to everything you can. And it's not, don't run yourself ragged, like take care of yourself. But I said yes to things like the fellowship that I was like, I don't want to do that. And I loved it. I said yes to a revenue cycle project. I learned I didn't want to do revenue cycle, which is just as important.
Yeah.
Uh, so there's so many opportunities, and some of them are given to you. Some of them you have to be willing to go and take. And I just encourage you, like, it's 2 years, make the most of it. Um, and just, yeah, don't do it for 3 letters behind your name, but do it for everything else that comes with that as well.
Well said and great insights there. So that kind of concludes our formal panel discussion. So open the floor for Q&A, but I just want to thank our panelists for being here. So can we give a round of applause? All right. So I know Travis is going to monitor the virtual chat here, but love to see if there's any questions from the audience, or else I will name call. Anna, let's get it. Sounds good. So just to repeat the question for our virtual audience, a prospective student asks, generally speaking, because of all the panelists, different fields of interest and kind of like different sectors within healthcare administration, what were some factors or criteria that they use to kind of decide on these particular sectors within healthcare admin? So I'm gonna open the floor to see if anyone wants to answer.
I'm happy to start. I actually came into the program thinking I had done process improvement and I thought I was going to leave doing process improvement because I really loved it. Uh, I use process improvement in my job, but it's not my job anymore. And, especially being married to a computer science degree person, if you would have asked me if I would have been in technology, I think both of us would have laughed. But you learn a lot on the job. I think it's just kind of part of that being open and just taking as many different projects as you can, especially during the program and your internship, and kind of weeding out what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah, I totally agree. I didn't know what I was going to focus on. I chose operations, like managing a clinic, managing people. One question that my mentor and my internship asked me that was really important is like, do you see yourself like managing a process, or do you see yourself managing people? And I got to do some exploration on like operations, people management, and then I got to dive into process improvement, and I really loved like managing a process. I still work a lot with people, but I think that's something you can think about is how you see yourself when it comes to like what you're managing over. But it was the internship and on the job. I learned everything that I am doing at work. So yeah, saying yes to everything so you can see what you're good at and what skills you may have not gotten to practice before.
Yeah, I think similar to the previous two answers, I had my personal interests, being tech innovation, but then having two internships here. I did one in quality and patient safety and one with Primera in their innovation lab. And I very much enjoyed the innovation lab over the quality. So I think that kind of just gave me a little bit more motivation to follow that, my personal interest lining up with professional, and then just looking for jobs after that that kind of matched or were in a similar vein to that.
I think I have a little bit of a different experience here because what I do now is pretty night and day as compared to everything I did in my internship and my fellowship. And frankly, when I signed on, I wasn't entirely aware of what I was going to be doing in informatics. And it's been just such a joy though, because I went in really loving the job description of a senior business analyst. And now I've been functioning as a product manager for almost a year now. So I really only did senior business analyst work for a couple months, but I've really leaned into it. I would say it's what we're doing at Providence across 7 states is industry leading. And I think that's very exciting. And that really keeps me motivated because some of the products that I manage are the first of their kind. And we work a lot with multi-care because we are a little bit larger, but they have a lot of really good pillars to share with us about their experience and interoperability at a smaller scale. I would say that it's been a journey. Like I said, when I started this conversation with you all, that an MBA, an HIHIM degree, and a comp sci degree would have been very helpful right about now, but who has the time for that? I think you just jump in and for the love of the game and for the love of, what you get to learn of it. I think for me, that's where I fell in love with my job, and my coworkers help so much. I absolutely adore everyone I work with. And I learn something new every day. And this is the first time I really feel like the dumbest person in the room, but in a very loving way. So it's been amazing.
For the love of the game. It's amazing.
For the love of the game.
But just to echo, if you were to ask me 2.5 years ago when I transitioned to this position, that I'd be doing strategic planning and business development for outpatient surgery centers, also known as ASCs, ambulatory surgery centers, I would have been like, what does the ASC stand for? And so, long story short, I think when you're open to new opportunities and being able to kind of not pivot, but try and explore what you think you like versus what you don't think you like, you might be surprised. Because I came into the program wanting to do healthcare policy to create more infrastructure changes in terms of how we address health equity. And I would say the mission's still there, but the skill set is a little bit different. And so hopefully, Anna, that answers your question. Sounds good. Thank you. Is there a question from the chat?
Yeah, I have two coming in. The first one is how has the recent shift in the political landscape of public health and funding and or AI impacted your work or job search or promotion?
I can answer that.
So it's a great question, and I'll have Roxy answer the question for the love of the game.
For the love of the game. Yeah, AI. So the government, it's changed everything. Let me just be clear about that. So we've been weirdly lucky enough in my role that they just signed a bill in DC not that long ago, really prioritizing healthcare interoperability and what that looks like as an industry. And so we actually had some of our higher up team members go over there and sign this bill. And for some reason, it's just caused everybody to jump in and be really interested in what I'm doing. It's a bit of a spotlight, so that's been a little bit challenging. But at the end of the day, I think in that way, it's been valuable. We're not as, I think, impacted by budget cuts as some other parts of healthcare are. But just the importance that has been placed on interoperability and, reimbursement and value-based care, that has been incredible in the last year. I would say AI has been incredibly helpful as well, just from like I mentioned, my computer science skills are not up to par with our developers. And so that's been really helpful in kind of helping me hone it. But I will say, and I firmly hold this opinion, AI does not yet have the capability to replace a person and their mind. And while it has really supplemented my ability to do my job really well, and I'm learning to leverage it to help me do better, and so is everybody else on our team, it hasn't fully replaced it by any means at all. In fact, using AI at work has given me a little bit more doubt and trusting it sometimes, because I'll know something is factual and then it'll spit out something that's completely different. So take that with a grain of salt in terms of, because it's just evolving so much. So I don't know, tomorrow it could replace me. I don't know. But I think for now, to say that it's an incredible tool that should be very well learned how to use is what I would sit with.
I think adding on to the first part of the question around policy, I think it's very relevant in my role. Yesterday, we were in a meeting talking about the margin impacts of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act and what that looks like in Washington State. I have a standing monthly meeting with our government relations team because telehealth reimbursement policy has been running on essentially 2-month waiver extensions for the past year and a half. And that affects what we can do in telehealth, whether we can or cannot offer services. And so that's something that we pay really close attention to. And I think more so from the regulatory side, AI, we're learning and trying to figure out, we're just standing up AI governance at Multicare. So it's a bit of a new thing for us, but just trying to get a better sense of what the policymakers are thinking in AI is kind of where we are at right now. But it is definitely something that we pay a lot of attention to.
Yeah, I think a lot is affected by both sides of the questions, AI and political climate. But I think from my experience, my organization, one thing that has been really valuable is one of our strategic pillars, which is being agile. So just always being able to adjust. I think it's very similar to COVID times. We were, expected to change the way that we do everything. And so I think that's similar to today. We don't have control over these things, so we just have to be able to adjust. For AI, I think, and just technology, I think a lot in my job, and I'm helping people improve their workflows and systems. Sometimes they think that might be the answer, and it definitely can make things more efficient, but we still have to redesign processes to make them more efficient. We don't want to automate like issues and waste. So I think it's not always the answer. You still want to think and, make sure you're using it most efficiently. But yeah, being agile and adjusting to things that can change tomorrow. Things that you do today could totally be different the next day. So you have to be able to adjust.
Yeah, I think if you want to be in healthcare leadership for something that's pretty much the same every single day, I don't want to tell you to run, but it's not going to be that. It is different, and it's impacted both by technology and social economics and government and everything. So it's, when Rowan and I graduated 5 years ago, it's just a very different environment. And so being adaptive is really important. I'd say my only maybe kind of pessimistic view on the AI piece for a technology person is healthcare delivery side of things is so risk adverse. So it's probably going to be the last ones, which creates a really interesting tension when you have these healthcare tech companies that are able to move so much more quickly and trying to fight. Yeah. So I think it's going to be a really interesting environment, but it's going to be really slow, just because sometimes when you're dealing with patients' lives, you can't move that quickly.
Oh, thank you for the insights. You mentioned, Travis, there's another question.
Yes. Some of you, excuse me, have mentioned your internships that you did when you were in the program. Can you each go through and share where you interned or did a fellowship while you were in the program?
Sounds good. Let's do a quick round robin because I want to make sure we have one more question. But I'll start with Sam and then we can just go down.
Yeah, I did an internship at Washington State Hospital Association as well as multi-care in their virtual department. And then I did my administrative fellowship with multi-care. And it was kind of across the system.
Did my internship at Overlake Hospital. They do one MHA intern about per year. And majority of the interns ended up being able to work there for their job. So very good opportunity.
I did one internship at Kaiser in patient safety and quality, and then one internship with Primera in their innovation lab.
I did my internship with Swedish, so a little bit more zoomed in, and my fellowship was more Providence, a little more zoomed out with their Alaska and Puget Sound entities.
Absolutely. And then I did my administrative internship at Multicare and then my administrative fellowship at Multicare. It may seem like it's a little skewed from the localization standpoint, but there's been a lot of alumni and individuals that have gone on to do internships at UCLA Health and other organizations across the country. And then for fellowships, same way. So it just so happens the panel footprint right now is localized within the community in Washington State, but that doesn't mean that there hasn't been other students that have gone on to do other things outside of the state. So I just want to call that out.
Can I add really quickly? Yeah, my cohort even had somebody go to Vanderbilt, somebody else went to St. Jude's. Like this is like, you're just kind of getting a little bit of a sample here, but it's across the country that people go to. So
We were able to drive.
yeah.
Yeah, that was a crucial criteria point. Are there any more remote questions? All right. I'd love to have one more question in person before we wrap this up. So feel free to raise your hand. Oh, for sure. Great question. So for our virtual audience, how is managing that workload in terms of being a student and also working potentially part-time through internships and then also kind of personal development as well? So I'll have whoever wants to start.
So I found it really manageable. I was a little scared, especially having 4 years off from undergrad and trying to be a student again. But I worked my entire time except for my first quarter. I participated in a lot of extracurriculars and things like that. Definitely some busier weeks, but I think that's a nice thing about having more of a team-based model is you just divvy up the work and rely on your team.
Very manageable for me. I was coming straight from undergrad, so I was used to being in school and working a part-time job. But honestly, I enjoyed like my work-life balance more in grad school than undergrad. I felt like the mix of group projects. I don't even think we had classes every single day, so it was very manageable. And you could even, use your extra time to devote to other things like the case comp or and internships or working.
Yeah, just adding on, I also found it manageable. We had class Monday through Wednesday, so I had Thursdays and Fridays for internships, other things. Was also not married, no kids at the time, so personal life was pretty easy to take care of, but found it very manageable overall.
True, yeah, not married, no kids. I think that's a really helpful part. So everyone get divorced. No, I'm kidding. I think that it's totally weird, but everybody, I would say that like it was really manageable for myself and most people. I would say the first quarter would probably be your toughest to kind of juggle. But beyond that, like even second year, I had time to go to class, do okay, do well, and be a process improvement specialist for a CFO and still go out with my friends like literally 3 times a week. Like you will figure out your balance. Like it's gonna be great.
Oh, thank you for those insights. And just to echo, everyone's at their own pace, right? And your own pathway. And that kind of leads to my closing statement here. But essentially, like we've done a lot of great things on the panelists in terms of extracurriculars, group dynamics, internships, fellowships, but it doesn't mean you have to do all of that. I think it just take it at your own pace because you're really focusing on your own career development, and that's professional and personal. And so sometimes comparison is the thief of joy. And so I just want to call that out. But in closing, I just want to thank our panelists here today for sharing their experiences. Maybe another round of applause. Hopefully today kind of gave you some insights in terms of what the UW MHA journey looks like and how that can translate into real leadership positions across healthcare administration. I think one of my biggest takeaways from just today's conversation is that there's no single path for you to like focus on, in the sense where like the program is always going to provide support, the tools, the mentorship, and that community to craft your own journey. So regardless if you choose the MHA program at UW or other programs, you're still gonna get that support, but we're going to be biased to say that UW's MHA programs can provide better support. And so we're hoping to see most of you join the UW MHA community. But thank you so much for your time. For the virtual audience and in person, go dogs.